This is Listen Lakeland, the show that keeps you up to date on all the things that make our city a great place to live, work, and play. Today's host is the Executive Director at Lakeland Now, a community-supported local news organization dedicated to cultivating civic engagement in Lakeland through freely accessible, locally driven news. She's a graduate of George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and serves on the boards of Lakeland Vision and Friends of Colt Creek State Park. Please welcome your host, Trinity Laurino.
Welcome to the good life.
Hello, Lakeland. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Trinity Laurino, and it's great to be hosting this month's episode of Listen Lakeland. This show is an extension of Lakeland Vision. For over 2 decades, Lakeland Vision has been a voice for the citizens of Lakeland, working with community stakeholders to create a bright future for our city. So thank you for joining us today. In full disclosure, our program has changed a little bit. We had planned to do a follow-up to the education forum that Lakeland Vision and Lakeland Now both hosted a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately our guest that we had planned for that episode is not available and is battling an illness right now. So we're hoping we'll be able to bring that to you in another month. The forum, I think, was a fantastic exploration about the state of our local school system, and there were a lot of questions that we got, particularly from teachers. And so we really wanted to be able to do a follow-up with one of the teachers in our school system and explore some of the other topics that we didn't get to in that evening. But if you missed it, you can go back and you can watch the forum on lakelandnow.com. But in the place, we actually have a really amazing guest today. It's a woman that I'm actually a huge fan of, and that I think if she were ever, God forbid, to leave Lakeland, half of the city would completely unravel because of how much she does for this city.
You're overselling me.
No, I'm not. All right. So our guest today is the amazing Julie Townsend, who is Executive Director of the Lakeland Downtown Development Authority. She's also the president of the Lake Morton Neighborhood Association. She's also the president of the Downtown Rotary Club. And she also hosts her own radio show called Downtown Dish that you can hear on How Communications, WLKF. What time does that air?
Tuesdays at 5 p.m.
Tuesdays at 5 p.m. In addition to that, she also has 4 grown children. So yeah, I don't think I'm overselling this at all to say Lakeland would unravel without you, Julie. So welcome. Thank you so much. And especially, at the kind of answering the last minute call, we really appreciate
That's what I do. I answer the bat signal.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, sorry, I did the thing. For anybody who doesn't know, tell us what is commonly referred to as LDDA, the Lakeland Downtown Development Association. What is that? Authority.
See, I know. We don't even go by that name really, other than legally, but on paper. But we just answer the phone downtown Lakeland because that's what people care about. But what we are actually is a taxing district. So the property owners that own property, commercial property within the downtown district, which is defined by state statute, they pay an additional $2 million in property tax. So I kind of liken it to a cupcake, if you will. We all pay city and county taxes. That's the cake. There's another organization, part of the city, called the CRA, which is the Community Redevelopment Agency. They're kind of the icing, and then we're the cute little sprinkles on top. So we pay those property owners pay that additional millage, but those funds are restricted to activities, events, programs, projects within the district. So they tax themselves, and then they pool that money together to improve the district in a variety of different ways.
Mm-hmm. And you want to talk a little bit just about what some of those programs are? Because I know there's so much going on in our downtown area.
Yeah, so what we own and operate the First Friday event. We own and operate the Farmers Market. Those are kind of our 2 big signature events that people would be most familiar with. Both of those events are actually celebrating 20 years anniversaries this year, 20-year anniversaries. So we're very proud of both of those events, and they bring thousands and thousands of people to the downtown district each week, each month. I think we clocked our last few farmers markets upwards of 4,000 people, approaching 5,000 people attending on any given Saturday. So that's a lot of folks coming and shopping with our vendors. We have about 116 on average on any given Saturday. And likewise with First Friday, the vendors are obviously a little different. That's not a shopping event per se, as the farmers market is, but more than 150. Sometimes we have 200 vendors at a First Friday, and those can bring 7,500 people to the downtown in a 3-hour period. So those take a lot of work. Starting up and breaking down an event of that size and magnitude in the streets of downtown, which have to be cleared from everyone else's uses, vehicles and such, is a big task. And so my staff is hats off to them because they do an amazing job. And I work every First Friday. I'm still out there, doing the grind work. Thankfully, I don't have to work every farmer's market. I do get to be a patron at those. So, but those are the two big things that we do. We do other night markets. We do all of the sort of marketing for downtown. We own the website, and we do all the social media, and then we promote the businesses, and we also work with the businesses on projects that better the community of downtown, like the flower pots and things like that. And then we work as a liaison for the businesses and the city departments, because there's always issues, and we kind of have to put those fires out.
Yeah. So how long has Lakeland Downtown been in existence?
The LDDA has been, it was formed in 1978.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been with it now?
It'll be 10 years in April, so about 9.5 years.
Oh.
Long time.
Let me ask, what are the biggest changes you've seen in our downtown? And I'll say, I'm coming up on 7 years since I moved to Lakeland, and I've already seen a lot of changes, but I hear people talk about what our downtown was like in the 90s, and I know it's been a huge process of revitalization. So I'm wondering kind of what you've seen in your 10 years you've been in Lakeland a lot longer, so you can even speak to before you were at LDDA. Yeah,
so I've been involved in downtown in some capacity since about 2002. So it's been a little over 20 years that I've worked in downtown in some capacity, mostly for the betterment of downtown, not necessarily just a business in downtown. And I'll tell you that, just the 20 years has really been, because of the farmers market and First Friday, it's just sort of night and day where it was before those two big events sort of took their hold and just expanded that third space that you talk about, just people wanting to be downtown. So I moved to Lakeland in 1999, and I bought my home in the Lake Morton district. I've only owned that one home, never lived anywhere else in Lakeland. And so I live downtown. You live downtown. I feel like we are downtowners, if you will. So I would say that the biggest thing is just the businesses have come and gone. There have been a lot of great businesses that we've seen that have left downtown, either by choice or they've retired or gone out of business. So the ebb and flow of businesses coming and going is just kind of a natural process for any downtown. But what I'll tell you is that the types of businesses that are now there, and their ability and their willingness to stay open into the evening hours and have commerce at those hours has really been a product of the fact that we proved to them that people would come downtown with First Friday 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the whole concept of third spaces, and if anyone's not familiar with that, that's basically the idea that societies need places for people to just be and interact and bump into each other, the way, and particularly unpaid third spaces. I mean, coffee shops are great third spaces, but there's still, at least a little bit of an, obligatory coffee purchase that goes along with them, right? And we have some great third spaces with our local community coffee shops and, other things too. But I think the thing that makes our downtown so special is that we have Munn Park right there at the center. We also have the beautiful surrounding around, Lake Mirror, and it gives us this really vibrant third space. But I also know that there's a lot of conversations going on right now about what that third space should really look like in the future. Do you want to talk about, what you would like to see happen maybe in Munn Park?
Oh goodness, there are
some different proposals out there.
I think there's changes that are coming to the community, and we feel like, we have to do lots of things to keep people entertained. And I do want people to feel like downtown is a place that they can come and spend time with their families and engage in lots of different things. So I think it's a challenge for any community to say, we're going to get everybody to agree that we want to do X in this space, because of course we all know that we're never all going to agree. So when you put that aside and you realize, okay, what are the other experiences that you can have in downtown, and let's not repeat those experiences. And that's what I've really pushed for. When we did it back in 2019, we did sort of like a charrette in the park, which is just a fancy French word for meeting. But we did a public meeting in the park, and we engaged with folks to tell us what they would like to see in Munn Park. And this is all post monument moving, and there's still a lot of people that are upset about that, and they want to put the monument back, and that ship has sailed, so we're not doing that. But that being said, I think the exercise we conducted then was sort of, what do we replace that space? What do we put in the center? And I think what we've grown out of learning is that putting nothing there is probably the best move. Instead of saying we have to put something in the center, I think the experiences that people have in Munn Park now with just the open space is desirable, and because there's really no open space like that's so centrally located to the urban area. You've got open space at Barnett Park, and that's wonderful, but there's also playgrounds there. So I think people are happy with the opportunity to have that open space, but the open space could create some other challenges that, we would have to address. But overall, you don't want to see another fountain, a fountain. We already have a fountain in Munn Park. We don't need another fountain just because it's in the center. We don't want to see a gazebo. Gazebos are being torn down all over the state and all over the country for lack of use and what kind of sort of element that it attracts in terms of people loitering and gathering and using the space for something other than it was supposed to be used for. So you see those being actually taken out of communities all over the state. So we don't want to repeat that mistake, spend all that money to build something that we're going to tear down in 5 or 10 years and realize it was a bad idea. So we get a lot of great feedback, which is wonderful. But, what I would like to see is irrelevant in terms of what, we want to have that community conversation. But I think that however we land, we just need to make sure that we're not creating a space. We're creating a space that people is unique to that space in the sense that I don't want to see a big playground in the center because we have that already in downtown. Playgrounds are great. We have one. Yeah. We have a swan statue. Don't need another one. So it's things like that. Let's create something that people are like, hey, I want to go down, have dinner at one of the amazing restaurants, and then I can do X in Munn Park. Whatever that X is, I don't know yet, but I want it to be different than they can do anywhere else.
And are you finding having that open space there is just allowing for more flexibility and the kind of events and the setup? When I go at Christmas time and it's all full of the lights and it is packed, and I've seen other events where you've got tents all through the middle, for some of the different festivals. So I imagine it's giving you a little more freedom.
Yeah, and adding back in the day, Munn Park was the place to hold your event. I mean, we started Spring Obsession 20 years ago and Fall Extravaganza, which is unfortunately been discontinued, but that was a 35-year long running event in Munn Park. And then the city years ago really upgraded what they were doing around the promenade in hopes that that area would attract events, mainly, I think, just to sort of relieve the congestion in the central part of the city. But people really still like having their events in Munn Park. Even with the parking constraints during an event period, they still like having it there. So leaving the space open for the most part does still allow for us to have the ability to do those events and expand. We're doing Friday Night Lives that are coming back in the spring that we partner with the city on with a band in the center of the park, and people come and dance and listen to the music. And so having more activities like that. But, just kicking a soccer ball and running around is also, a valid thing to do in the park. And so we want people to use the space. We don't want it to sit there dormant. But you can't use it 24 hours a day. So we just have to make sure that what we do put there makes sense.
Yeah. And you brought up parking a little bit, the parking challenges. So I know
you wouldn't let that slip by there, Trinity. All right.
So let's talk about parking in downtown.
So I will always say, and I truly believe there's not a parking problem, there's a walking problem. Yes, there are a lot of spaces. Downtown will say that there's lots of spaces in downtown. There's a lot of spaces in downtown that are not what I call in the customer's inventory in their mindset, because you might have to cross South Florida to get to that space. You're not going to park on Missouri, which is one block west of South Florida, to go to Harry's or Black and Brew. That's out of your mental inventory of available spaces. So we have to think strategically about how do we address where people want to park, where they need to park, and make those spaces as accessible as possible. And I know that the city is doing that right now. They're working on looking at parking and how it can be better utilized for customers to make it the most convenient, and also just the utilization better, because oftentimes there are places like, why can't I park there? It's an empty parking lot. And what people don't realize is that there's almost half of the parking spaces in downtown are privately owned. And so you have this business that has a parking lot right next to them, and you can't park there because it's not customer parking for downtown. It's customer parking specifically, or employee parking specifically for that business. So there's a lot of confusion because the city doesn't control all of the parking. And so sometimes they'll get a bad rap because they're people complain about the parking problem, but when you don't control 50% of the inventory, it's really a difficult obstacle to overcome. But doing a good job with what they have, looking at ways to improve that system, and what LDDA is contributing to that coming up in the next few months probably is a partnership with the Squeeze to bring back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday lunches, Squeeze service. So you'll be able to park remotely in a city-owned parking lot that they're going to allow the Squeeze users, if you will, to park there for free. It's not going to be on Munn Park, that lot. It's going to be off, the beaten path by a few blocks, but that's the whole point. You park sort of, remotely, which is that's a stretch because nothing's really that remote in downtown Lakeland, but we'll use the word remotely for argument's sake. You park remotely and then you jump on the Squeeze for free, but the frequency has to be there. The consistency of getting you where you want to go and picking you up and getting you back to your car has to be there. And I feel confident that the team at Citrus Connection can certainly do that. They have a proven track record of excellent service with the buses. So I know that the Squeeze will be a great addition to transportation opportunities and walkability for downtown.
Yeah. I have to say, I've loved the Squeeze, especially this time of year. I love it on Saturdays to get to come home from the farmer's market because I'll head to the farmer's market when the mornings are still cool, but by the time I'm heading home and with a bag full of stuff, then I don't necessarily want to walk that mile anymore.
Yeah. And that's really a benefit of the Lake Morton neighborhood, and I'm sure other neighborhoods would love to have that service. The further out you get from downtown, the more difficult I think the squeeze specifically service gets with golf carts. But it is the first step. I mean, we would love to have a more robust transportation system that gets people from point A to point B in sort of the last mile sort of trips with great amount of frequency, but we need more density. And getting to that point in terms of density is you got to have more people living closer to downtown in order to make those systems work. Not even profitable, because I don't think you'll ever make public transportation profitable. I don't think anyone has that magic bullet, but it has to work. And and density of people is one of the things that makes that work.
Well, while we're talking about the walking and the transportation aspect, so how long has it been since the lights transferred over to four-way stops now? Do you know?
Oh, yeah.
The downtown intersections?
Yeah, well, the city first implemented those in 4 or 5, I think 6 locations, but the most sort of popular, if you will, were the Tennessee and Kentucky at Main and Levin intersections. And that's something that the DDA advocated for. We didn't have the data, but we kind of had the suspicion that the crossings, the number of trips, vehicle crossings in those intersections was not such that it really required to have a signaled intersection. So we took that sort of theory to the staff, and they did the actual data count and determined that, we don't really have the frequency of trips through those intersections that justify a signal, and we're able to convert those to four-way stops. And of course, there's going to be those grumpy Gusses out there who don't like it, because then they have to pay attention. Yeah. God forbid.
Change is always scary.
God forbid they pay attention to pedestrians more carefully instead of the screens of their phones. But for the most part, it's huge success. And then it got expanded to, I think, 8 or 10 other intersections throughout downtown. And the thing that I am quoted saying many, many times is that you get where you're going faster by going slower. And you literally do. You have to drive now 15, 20 miles an hour because you just can't, unless you're a crazy person, you just can't get up to those speeds between the short city blocks of the city of Lakeland. You can't get up to the type of speed of 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. Sometimes we've seen people drive through there. You can't get to those speeds, so you are driving slower, but you're not having to wait for that 30-second, 60-second, sometimes 90-second cycle of a light when there's no cross traffic and you're just waiting. So eliminating that, I think, has eliminated a lot of the frustration on the driver, because I'm much less frustrated. I mean, I typically come up Massachusetts from Lake Morton to get to work every day. And I have completely abandoned Massachusetts, and now I take Kentucky. Yeah. And my office is on Kentucky. It's always been on Kentucky, but I just always took Massachusetts because it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other with the lights. And now that Kentucky doesn't have those lights anymore, I am at work instead of 3.5 minutes, I think it's 2.5 minutes.
We have such long commutes, Julie.
Yes. But I still get very upset with myself if I leave something at home and I have to go back.
We're going to get hate mail from everybody in Lakeland who commutes into Tampa and Orlando and spends an hour and a half in the car every day.
They don't have to. They don't have to.
Sorry.
We need you here. We have lots of jobs.
Yes.
High skill, high wage, right?
That's very true. Yeah, there are lots of options. I mean, that was part of what made Lakeland such an attractive option for us. It's like I've gone from having that hour and a half commute to now if I have to be in the car for 15 minutes, I think it's a long drive. Yeah. I'm so spoiled by living in Lake Morton. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think the shift to the four-way stops have been, for me, they've been a huge success, both as somebody who walks downtown and somebody who drives downtown. I think my experience mirrors exactly what you're talking about. It's a lot easier to, and you don't have those cars that are speeding by as you're walking, and just makes for an overall more pleasant environment. There was something else I was going to ask you about in regards. Oh, I know what it was. Sorry. Are the stop lights actually going to come down at some point?
So I think eventually they will. When we did this experiment the first time many, many years ago, and people were very grumpy about it, it was at Pine, and many people probably who so many of you moved here since then and don't realize, but we actually had signalized lights at Pine at Kentucky and Tennessee.
Oh.
And if you drive down that street and think about that, you're like, there's no way we would have had. Yes, we did. And so there was, we took those out, and those poles and all the apparatus that goes with that stayed up for, I think, a year or so. And you want to leave that up for two reasons. One, just in case it doesn't work and you really do need to put it back. The expense of putting those poles back into the ground is ridiculous. So the city wants to be 100% sure this is the right move. But the other reason is that because people aren't used to it, they need that additional blinking red light to sort of remind them, okay, there's a stop sign, because they're not used to looking for stop signs. So if they don't see a light and they're not thinking, oh, I should be looking for a stop sign because I'm at an intersection, they're going to start just blowing through those. So I think we've had very few crashes. I don't think there's been really anything of any kind of significance. Certainly no increase in crashes, more so than when there were signalized lights there. And I think crashes are pretty low in general in downtown, just in that core, because there are so many pedestrians. People are paying attention to walking for those, looking for the walkers, and making sure that they're not, running people over, which is nice. Thanks, we appreciate that.
Yeah. We like to live.
Yeah.
So what's new? What's coming new to downtown?
So we have many new businesses. Some I can talk about, some I can't. I will give you some general overviews though. There's a new bike shop in downtown.
Oh.
And he custom makes e-bicycles.
Oh.
American Iron is the company name. And I'm super excited because some of you may remember Bike Share, and LDDA brought that to downtown and had a great partnership with the city and got sponsors, and it was fully funded through sponsorships, and it lasted just a couple of years. And for the most part, people didn't ride. Everyone liked the idea of Bike Share. They thought, oh, it's great to live in a city that has Bike Share. Oh, are you using it? No. So it kind of flopped because of that. But to be fair, to be honest, if you're not a regular bike rider, some of the hills in downtown particularly can be a little challenging on the glutes. So I understand. I rode the bike a lot. I know City Manager Sean Rouse rode the bikes a lot. I think he and I had the highest mileage on the system. But what's good about the e-bikes, and not that we're getting an e-bike share program, I'm not saying that, but it's something that we can look to as a partnership with him, as maybe as rentals. Maybe he finds a space closer to the downtown core, my office or Munn Park or something like that, and we get the conversation going again, because the e-assist bikes, they're not fully electric. You can still pedal if you want.
Yeah.
But when you're going up Massachusetts from Lake Morton to the Munn Park area, that's a hard hill if you're not used to that kind of thing, and then you break out into a sweat, and now your day is ruined. So, so we want to, if we can partnership with him, that would be great. We've got a couple of new restaurants coming. I know we've lost some restaurants. We lost La Imperial, and we lost Federal Bar, and Cafe Roti went out of business a few years ago. But sometimes that's just the ebb and flow of it. Like I said, in a downtown, you're going to have, it's a living, breathing organism. Things are going to grow, and things are going to expire, if you will. But we do have 2 new restaurants that are coming. They're going to take a while to do their build out, and I can't talk about where they are or what they are yet, but they're going to be great additions to what we already have. I know that, actually 3 restaurants, because Bedrock has already announced that they're moving into the Pita Pit location, and but and those folks own the building, and I think they were done. They're like, we've done this, and it was a great experience, but we're ready to do something else. So, and La Imperial owned their building as well. So again, I think it's less of a reflection on downtown and the businesses or the amount of business that it's generating, and just those are hard businesses to be in. Anybody who's ever worked in a restaurant, it's tough, and how hats off to all of those people that can do that every day for years and years.
Yeah, my daughter actually worked at Pita Pit, and I have to say the owners were lovely, lovely people.
Yes.
And I know they put their heart into that business, but yeah, it's not easy to sustain that, and especially something that is Mediterranean and fresh, and there's a lot of costs that go into that. But they were great employers for her, and that was a fabulous job for a teenager. So
That's right.
Shout out to them. But yeah, I'm excited for Bedrock Wings to come into that same space. And actually, they were the new owners of the building were able to retain Descent Brewing, which it did sound like it wasn't going to happen at first, and then I think there was like a massive community response. So. Yeah.
It's nuanced. It's as much as I'd love to say the community made that happen. There's actual economics mixed in there, but we'll let
some incentives
dream.
maybe. But yeah, it's really nice to see how much our downtown is changing and thriving and kind of keeping up with the time. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for coming and spending a half an hour with us to talk through everything that's going on in downtown, and we so appreciate all the work that you do to make Lakeland such a livable place. And to all the listeners out there, I want to say thank you for tuning in to Listen Lakeland. Your feedback is valued, and we encourage you to head over to www.lakelandvision.org to participate in our monthly survey related to today's show topic.
I said, welcome to the good life.
Listen Lakeland is brought to you as a collaborative project between Lakeland Vision, the City of Lakeland, and Hall Communications, a community working together to provide an exceptional quality of life. Thank you for being with us.